and introducing my next guest. Location this weekend is in Bondi, the sunny Bondi. So, really, really glad to be here and really, really glad to have a close friend on with such a background that is probably going to amaze a few people, and I'm about to read it out, so here we go. Former professional Muay Thai fighter, but wasn't your actual job, but you fought professionally in Melbourne, and we can dive into that. Australian Army Special Forces Commando and combat veteran with deployments to Afghanistan. Medals obtained during service. Australian Active Service Medal, Afghanistan Medal, Australian Defence Medal, NATO Defence Medal, and the Special Forces Combat Badge. You've also had a unit citation as well, which you can go into. Ultramarathon runner completing 50K, 100K races. Done a 100 miler?
No 100 miler yet.
No 100 miler yet.
No. Closest was 142 or 146.
Yep. Adventure racer, mountaineer, climbing some of the highest peaks in the world around Everest. And then close friend of mine, Warren Proctor. Mate, welcome to Two Worlds Collide podcast. How you going?
Thanks, Sam. Going well, mate. It's a lovely afternoon in Bondi. So good to see you.
Yeah,
thanks
it is.
for flying over.
No worries. Yeah, I reckon the last time I was here, maybe Anzac Day, we had breakfast together a couple of years ago. So it's good to see you again. And we'll go out and have a few couple of wines tonight, maybe, and maybe a big steak. So
I'll show you a nice restaurant.
Yeah, good stuff. Look, mate, given your background and the recent events with the Donald Trump shooting or the attempted assassination, with someone with such a expert background in the field of close protection, you were Special Forces in the Commando, one of the highest units you can get to in the Australian military, along with the SAS. So what's your thoughts on the security lapses or, the security detail on the day? Because, someone that's so professional, I want to hear it from you.
Mate, I haven't done a lot of research on it. I guess my first point would be that photo was absolutely amazing of Trump with the flag behind him. So
historic photo.
That will go down in history, I think, that photo. But I've got to say it was pretty amazing that someone was able to get within 150 meters of him and take a shot off a rooftop when he's surrounded by arguably the best close personal protection detail in the world.
With the biggest budget in the world. And I haven't done a lot of research into it, but I did see a few eyewitness accounts of perhaps multiple eyewitnesses pointing out that the shooter was there 3 to 5 minutes before he fired. So that is the local law enforcement, there's a bit of lapse there. Massive issues with how he got in there with the rifle in the first place. Why the roof wasn't manned. The head of the Secret Service came out yesterday and said the reason it's not was because it was a sloped roof and unsafe for anyone to be on there, which is fucking ludicrous.
Interesting for a group of people that are meant to be protecting someone else's lives and arguably jump in front of a bullet for someone else. I was pretty surprised to hear that, mate. Too.
Someone hasn't got a shot off. I think Reagan was the last person they got a shot off at, and that was, in the 1980s. It's crazy to think that we're still living in a world where that can happen, with all the technology and everything that's happening at the moment, and the amount of money that's going into these sort of areas to protect these people. I never thought that we'd see it in our day and age. You only sort of hear that stuff, and it's only historic stuff that you hear of. But, the other day when I was sitting there and my wife told me, I'm like, that's it. That's got to be a deep fake on the internet or something. And then I looked at it and I was like, holy shit. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it, mate, given that you've got such an extensive background in that area, which I'm really looking forward to diving into, mate. I've got some great questions here for you. So are you ready to go?
Let's go for it.
All right. Yeah. Look, to make my podcast flow well together, the previous podcast guest has a question for you. My previous podcast guest, it was a guy named James Fantasia. He was a head recruiter for the Adelaide Crows for 10 years. He was the general manager for Western Bulldogs and then the general manager for Hawthorn Football Club for quite a few years. So he has a really, really extensive background in AFL and AFL management and football club management and list management and, understanding people to get the right people to the club. So it was a really, really good podcast. He had a question for you, and I gave him a bit of background on you before this question. His question was the discipline in you to fight Muay Thai before you started fighting, or did you develop discipline from fighting?
Great question. I think you've got to have an element of something in you to start doing that type of a sport. But I think what does happen during the process of getting better is actually your discipline is honed by the activity itself, and you build higher and higher levels of resilience in that particular area. So what might have been really tough to do at the start of that journey, after 10 years of that journey, that's really quite easy. And I'm talking from a discipline perspective. So that might be, training for 2.5 hours a day or 3 hours a day, getting in the ring and getting punched around for 10 rounds or whatever that looks like. Yeah.
So you're saying you had discipline when you started, but as as time went on and on, you developed more and more discipline, and it just became routine that, you were doing 10-round sparring and you would train for 2.5 hours a day and stuff like that. And the discipline was there to start with, but it built up over time as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Absolutely. But I think, I do think with certain people, there's a natural propensity to be able to do that type of a sport or, that type of engagement. I don't particularly know what drives that. But even through my time in the unit and my time afterwards in ultramarathon running and so forth, I think
there's a type of person.
I often see that type of person.
Yes. Yeah. Funny you say that, because this type of person is the type of person that I've been trying to interview across my journey with this podcast, right? I'm trying to get in. I've had in professional Ironman athletes, both in surf lifesaving and the triathlon world. I've had in ex-AFL players, Brownlow medalists, AFL captains, yourself, other ex-military friends, people that ran AFL management clubs. They always seem to be very, very driven on one thing continuously throughout their life. So whether that be for you, Muay Thai, moving to the unit after that, and then ultra running after that, climbing mountains after that, you've always been fixated on something, and you've been very disciplined in that area continuously. That discipline just doesn't go away at times. It continuously stays. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, I think typically those type of people are quite purpose driven. So I think a real, what I've recognized about myself is a real purpose for me is to make sure I'm doing something that tends to be quite difficult and gives me the opportunity to have a physical outlet.
Do you think that's important to do physically hard things throughout your life?
Well, for me,
yeah,
absolutely it is for me. I don't think it is for everyone, but I think there's, and Sam, I reckon you're that type of person as well. It's for us, I think it's really, it's almost a necessity. I don't feel great unless I'm doing relatively hard things. That's when I feel my best.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. And there was a couple of years where I wasn't doing that and I sort of fell away. But then I got back into that. And, that's probably when I've always been my most disciplined and I've always enjoyed myself the most, when I've got a target race going out or I'm in the military or I'm, doing something physically tough. I've got a target in mind where I'm continuously doing that sort of stuff. And yeah, I think there's a small form of happiness in there as well that you get out of, continuously working towards saying, can you get a goal? And you're like, oh, fuck, if I continuously do this, I'll get better at it. And, there's full rewards and dopamine hits throughout the way, which is, and like you said as well, I think, that there's only a certain amount of people as well that might be correct in saying for. But, I think if more people adopted that, they might actually see a different way on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately we are animals, right? And we've come from being animals, and what do animals do every single day is move a hell of a lot. And I think we miss out on that opportunity, a lot of us do, because of this, this world that we live in, which
is a comfort,
chairs and couches and aeroplanes and cars and so forth.
Yeah, I read an interesting fact the other day. It wasn't only until 60, 70 years ago where they actually had warm showers. And then we've just come into this generation now where there's, like no one can think that not having warm showers wouldn't be a part of their life, and how much the previous generation struggled and how much we aren't at the moment. I think there's comfort is a very addictive drug, given to a lot of people through couches, like Netflix and internet, and not having to walk anywhere, Ubers everywhere. Everything's becoming very easy for everyone. And like we just said, it's not for everyone in this world to go out there and get struggle. But I think the more struggle you do put in your life, the more, I wouldn't say happy, but maybe the more proud of yourself are. And then from that having pride in yourself, there is happiness to follow with that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it is like a virtuous cycle, right? Like we are lucky enough to have the ability to put ourselves into tough situations and know that we've got comfort on the other side, which a lot of people don't. So I think by doing that, it definitely gives you that element of pride, which then it is a virtual cycle that I think can really change people's lives.
Yeah, very interesting. Look, I just want to sort of we got a little bit off track there, but I want to get back onto some of your fighting and what sort of what gave you the motivation to start in the first place? What was it? Did you have a friend that was down there and dragged you along, or tell me the story, man?
It was like it was a bit of a funny story actually. It was New Year's Eve, and I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I was down on the beach, and it was like we were all a bit drunk. and somehow I ended up by myself, and I remember back then I had a Nokia, like a 3210 or something like.
And the game was Snake on it.
Yeah, the game was Snake, which I was very good at, by the way. But somehow I got drunk and walked off by myself, and there was a group of guys, which I vaguely remember, and one of them took my phone, and then another one kind of like either like stabbed me or slashed me with a knife in the head, or bottled me across the head with a bottle. I don't remember, but I had a big.
Jesus,
you'd be familiar with this. I had a big gash across my head once I kind of woke up, and then kind of I had to go to hospital, and after that.
So what you went to just like a Muay Thai or a kickboxing gym, and that's how it started?
More or less, yeah. There is a little bit more to that story, but I'll tell you that another day.
Okay. And how many years did you follow? Like, what's your record?
So it was from a overall fights perspective, there were quite varying levels of fights. So often I'd just do like 3-rounders, or I even fought amateur boxing as well. I lost my very first fight, which was an amateur boxing fight. I still won't forget that feeling of losing that fight. I also got my nose broken in the second round. I think he had a mean left hook, this guy, and he was a lot more experienced than me. It was a bit of a mismatch, but he didn't knock me out. I think I lost on points, but.
After getting your nose broken.
After getting my nose broken.
You just kept going.
Yeah, of course. I won the third round, I think, after that.
Yeah.
So he won the first two and I won the last. But After that, I never lost a fight again.
How many fights do you have?
I reckon it was around 10.
Yeah.
Across the disciplines. So I kind of fought like modified Thai and boxing.
Yeah. Muay Thai has to be one of the scariest ones because you can just throw these lethal elbows and shin kicks, and you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah. Well, I never saw it that way. I kind of saw it as like it was a smorgasbord of tricks that I could use. Right. It felt more like more tactical, strategic in that, you know, if one thing wasn't working, I could try something else.
Yeah.
So I could go somewhere else.
More options.
It was very dynamic.
Start being smarter with it.
Yeah. So it wasn't always about who was physically the best.
Yeah, because you can get hit from, well, there's 6 disciplines you can get hit from, right? 2 elbows, 2 fists, 2 legs.
Yeah. Well, kicks and knees.
Yeah, so
8. and then throws as well if you want to.
So 9.
So 9.
And then only with boxing, there's only 2 hands.
There's 2 hands.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Not something that I would ever do or recommend for anyone, but, you know, obviously it's treated you quite well and, you know, helped you throughout your journey. Do you think that you got, like we were talking about disciplines before, but do you think that sort of area, being in that area, helped you succeed in the military and ultra marathon running and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think as I said earlier, I think, you know, putting yourself in hard situations creates, I think, resilience or more resilience. And I think if you just do that over and over again, you build more and more resilience. And I think those attributes became really, well, you know, right? You and I were together for aspects of that. So it became really, really handy having put yourself in quite hard situations before I went into the Special Forces training cycle.
Yep. Was there a reason why you left professional fighting?
Yeah. It was based on so I was studying university at the time, and I was doing quite well at uni. I was doing engineering and computer science, and I'd be sparring and I'd get really bad headaches after I was sparring, and then I'd struggle to concentrate in uni the next day.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, I think this probably isn't good for my head.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to focus on university.
You know, you are a very, very smart guy, and I think, you know, to highlight that early in the career, you know, especially if you're having them issues as well, headaches, constant headaches after sparring and stuff like that, like it's not good. And people do push through that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of issue at the moment with CTE and you know, especially in AFL players as well.
Absolutely.
I had John Platten on for my episode 4 or 5, and we spoke about that a bit. You know, he's had 45 concussions during his AFL career that they know of.
Wow.
And yeah, we sort of spoke about, you know, the issues that he's having now, and it's one of those things that it's, you know, back in the day and even probably when you were fighting, you know, it's only really came big in the last 7 or 8 years where they've really got on top of it. But even back then when you were fighting, it would have just been, no one would have knew about it.
No, it was nothing. But they called it punch drunk. So you'd run into the older pro fighters who would still like hold pads for people, and you know, they'd hang around the gyms.
Yeah, the lights are on, but they don't.
Yeah. So that was kind of, for me, it was a bit of a wake up call.
Yeah,
like, you know, I love doing this,
but I don't want to be that.
No,
yeah,
I don't want to.
Smart call, and that sort of, you know, brings us on to the military. What was your motivation behind joining, specifically trying to make it to the Commando unit, which is them in the SAS? They are the Special Forces. If you want to be a Special Forces soldier, you go to one of those two. What was your motivation behind this?
I think the concept of being in the Special Forces had always really fascinated me. Even from a very young age. Like my great uncle was also in the SAS, and he had a bit of a story as well where he was in a Black Hawk helicopter crash in '96 that went down, and I think.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah, yep. So he was in that chopper, and he got a Medal of Gallantry because he dragged some guys out before it blew up, and he got medically discharged after that as well. And I didn't even know him very well, but I just kind of looked up to that story. And then I think combining that with, like, I was working at the time. I'd finished university and I was working as an engineer, and I wasn't finding the work very purposeful or very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I really wanted to test myself to see if I could do it. And I felt like the Special Forces was the ultimate test. And I also wanted to serve.
Yeah. So there was that bit in you that you were, you wanted the adventure, but you were quite patriotic as well. You wanted to do something for your country.
Yeah, I love this country. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is something quite noble and meaningful to do in someone's life, especially if they've, coming from a background that you've come from, right? You went from fighting professionally to giving that away, and then potentially, not having really anything to test you because you were, just working. I'm sure you would have kept physically fit and went to the gym and stuff like that, but, that's what we were talking about before, that next test.
Yeah.
Is that what it was sort of like, that, that next test for you?
Yeah, mate, 100%. Well, it felt like the ultimate test. So I felt like when I signed up for this, I was 100% in. Like, I was like, if I can do this is the, then I've kind of like clocked it. I don't need to be tested anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the ultimate test of it.
The ultimate test. Yeah. You probably felt the same, I imagine, when you kind of signed up.
Yeah. How old were you when you signed up?
I think I was 24.
Yeah, I was 18, so.
Yeah, mate, you were young when you came in.
Very young. Still on mum's tip.
You were, mate, we took you under our wing.
Yeah, there were definitely a few of you that did, and I'm thankful for that, because I was talking to a guy on my podcast recently who's was at my unit, and my formative years were 18 to 22. They were in the military, 18 to 23 or whatever, especially in those early years. And people like yourself and a couple other people that I won't mention, but will be coming on this podcast eventually. You guys took me under your wing and sort of showed me how to be a man a bit. And they were my formative years. So.
How did we show you how to be a man?
Yeah, that's another podcast. So, actually, that's not even podcast talk.
I don't think so, mate.
Look, let's get on to your deployment to Afghanistan. When was that? What year was it?
That was 2011.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was June 2011, I think.
Yep.
Or May 2011.
Now, I had one of my friends on previously on the podcast. We spoke about coming home and sort of the toll that sort of takes on you and stuff like that. And we are going to get to that. But I want to ask you sort of as well the toll that it takes on you mentally and physically. One of those deployments, they're tough. You're carrying a lot of gear. The mental side of it as well, getting shot at. What are some of the things you took away from this? And do you think you're more capable of doing stuff? Did that make you tougher? Did it make you harder? Did it sort of give you a bit of a sense of, not that you're untouchable, but especially after you run 100K races and stuff like that, you probably look at one of them races and go, well, I've done all this stuff over in Afghan. This race is actually easy. Does it give you that sort of outlook on life?
I guess in short, yeah, I think it gave me a huge level of confidence to be able to push beyond. I felt like I could push beyond what most people could from a physical perspective, because I could cope with the pain. And I think the training that we went through over that 2.5 years or 3 years or whatever it was before I went to Afghanistan really sets you up for war.
Yeah.
That's what it, and you probably noticed it too, right? The person you were when you joined is quite different to the person you are after finishing the training. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say that, but I completely agree with it. Completely agree with it. And it's an effective process, right? Like, it's been honed and refined over generations and generations.
Yeah, they've crafted it to make it perfect.
Yeah, to develop the type of attributes and the type of person that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty scary too, right? Like, when looking back in retrospect, how that works.
Yeah.
And then I think the confidence of going into combat and being able to be effective in that environment.
Be able to function.
Yeah.
Yep.
function and be effective, I think then did carry through beyond that, because I knew if I could cope with that sort of pain, and some of the pain was pretty full on, then it gave me the sense that, running 100 Ks wouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, and climbing some of the highest peaks in the world, not that hard.
Mate, they're not high enough yet. No, there's a few more to go, a lot more.
I want to talk to you about that, being under pressure overseas and that sort of stuff. What was your first reaction to, being under fire, and, did you mentally, did you pause? I want to sort of go into that sort of mental aspect of what was your reaction?
I think the very first time I copped fire, it was from quite a way away. So it was from a sniper position. He was a great shot, mind you. He shot three of us that day. Didn't kill any of us. But he was a very, very good shot. However, I didn't feel scared. I felt ready to go. Like I wanted to, and I had cover. I was like, I didn't feel like he was going to have the opportunity to kill me that day, right? He might have, but he didn't.
Do you ever get used to that?
But, well, I think I was going to say, I think then, though, if I draw a parallel between that experience and then really close range, when and having multiple assailants, I think that experience was very different. And initially, the interesting thing was in that experience, or one of those experiences, the training really works. And the first thing you do is what you're taught, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing you do is return fire, right? And then I think then your brain actually starts to switch on, and then you shit yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're like, holy shit. And then
so the adrenaline's worn off a little bit maybe, and then your brain takes over.
And then you're like, wow, like that was close.
And this is real.
And this is real. And then after that, then I felt like a deep sense of kind of anger because someone had almost killed, or a group of people had almost killed me and perhaps some of my mates. And I felt the need to respond even more beyond that initial response.
Yeah, that's interesting the way you stick it like that. It's almost like getting bullied. Like in school, right? I'm just trying to compare to it. Like, like you're bullied in school and you want to respond to that bully. But obviously in a much, much higher realm of consequences. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they get much higher. Do they? But it was, like that one particular experience was definitely pretty big.
Yeah. One of those life events. That you always remember sort of thing.
I won't forget that.
Yeah. All right, let's sort of jump on to, coming home from your deployment. How long was your deployment?
It was 5 months.
5 months, yeah. So, and for anyone that is out there, and, there are a lot of listeners that aren't military people, friends in Adelaide and stuff like that, some of the infantry deployments, they can go up for 7 to 8 months, but with the special forces deployments, because they are so full on, they're generally a little bit shorter, so 5 months.
That's right.
And they rotate through quite a bit. It's because of the continuous sort of stuff that you guys are doing over there all the time, right? And that's probably why it was a little bit shorter than some of the longer ones. But did you sort of manage to, or did you struggle to reintegrate back into normal life when coming home?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think the sense of having such this amazing sense of purpose and then deciding to leave. So you're leaving this huge sense of purpose. You're leaving this real close-knit group of friends and guys that you're working with.
Whilst you're over in Afghan?
Yeah, but even like afterwards and once you choose to leave the military.
Yeah.
I found the reintegration not yeah, like it was difficult at times. Like even just basic shit. Like I'd get so frustrated when I was on an aeroplane and people would take so long to take their luggage from the top compartment.
I still get frustrated. I still get frustrated.
Really, really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Or like I'd hear someone complaining about really, really basic shit.
Yeah, their coffee's not warm or something like that.
And I was just like, oh gosh, you got no idea.
How long did that take you just to get back into the swing of things?
Not that long for that sort of stuff. Like those, I guess, I'd call it surface level frustrations.
Yeah.
I think it takes a lot longer to kind of work through, you know, the very, very different experience that you've had and be able to finitize that with your life back here in Australia.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine about this as well on a recent podcast, and he was like, you know, it's crazy how you can 1 week be shooting someone overseas in Afghanistan or getting shot at. The next week you can literally be back in an Australian bar drinking beer. And, you know, there's only 7-day difference or sometimes even less than that. You know, the reintegration part from there, it's you know, that's where a lot of people get it in mishaps straight away when they come back, that first 2 weeks, right, when they come back. That's when they're normally getting locked up or fighting or having a fight with their missus or something like that. Spending all their money. And that's the same thing as well. You come back completely cashed up, like $100,000 in your bank or something like that, right? And it's like, let's have fun.
Sadly, I didn't, but but yeah, like you did come back with a bit of money, and I think that's dangerous. Given, you know, you're free, you're out of that system, you got money, and you kind of got nothing really to do.
Except drink.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, also sort of talking about the friendships from the militaries and stuff like that. And, you know, I classify, well, you know, you're in my wedding, right? And we don't live in the same state. And, you know, there's times there where we don't talk to each other for, you know, months, but we're still very, very close. Why do you think people like us and people like people that, you know, that join with us and that friendship group that we have, why do you think we're so close? Like, is there a bonding point that we go through together, or what's your thoughts on that? Yeah,
mate. I think we've had a shared experience that is really unique. So I think that combined with the fact that we're probably relatively similar too in some of our values and the way we see things and some of the things that we, you know, see as our purpose. So I think the combination of those two things, plus perhaps the reminiscing too, you know, like we had some bloody awesome times, right? And some terrible times as well.
Yeah.
But, you know, that shared history, for me, I don't know, is really special.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd definitely agree with you on that. Especially, you know, the part of the shared history and going through stuff together, whether it be good times or bad times. You know, you still go through it together, and there's a forging of friendships there, which is, you know, like when iron gets, you know, welded together. It's sort of unbreakable after a time.
Folding samurai sword.
Yeah, that's it. You know, they sharpen it and they sharpen both ends, and you're on both sides.
Exactly.
That's the type of thing that I'm trying to get to here is you know, the bonds you can have with military people in life, and you know, sometimes it takes for you to go through stuff with someone to have that bonding point, and then to be really, really close together.
I agree. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
And sometimes it's an unfortunate bonding point.
That's right.
Very unfortunate bonding point, but you know, that sort of welded you together for life after that.
Yeah, I think the harder the experience together, well, I guess it can go either way. I guess that some people, perhaps it might fracture two people if they find during that really tough experience, their perception of what should have happened and what each of them should have done is incorrect or different. Yeah. But I think in our instance, and most of the guys we've worked with instance, is that it's bonded us closer. Which is pretty special. I feel really lucky to have these type of people in my life, you know, like that I can call up some of the other guys that we know, and I won't have seen them for 2 years, and you know, it's that instantaneous connection.
But it's still like we have, you know, we just seen each other yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, like I'm going to be a bit weird with him. There's nothing like that. Like I've never had anything like that. You know, I've got friends up in Brisbane on the Gold Coast, and you know, whenever I travel, I just give them a call. I haven't seen them for a year, and I'm like, "Do you want to grab a coffee, or can I stay with you?" Yeah, sure. There's always a bed for you, and it's like
100%.
we were there yesterday.
It's like where you're staying tonight.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Doing your podcast in your lounge room.
Already set up when I got home from work.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, left the key under the mat, and I just made myself at home, and away we are.
Hey, mate, it's cold in here. I'm going to turn my heater on.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Can run 100 Ks, but can't get a little bit cold.
All right, and we're back from a quick break because Warren got a little bit cold, and I lent him a Two Worlds Collide podcast jumper. Well, actually, everyone that comes on the podcast gets this jumper, and they are very, very good, very, very warm. I might as well announce it now, for the celebration of my 10th episode, I'm going to do a giveaway of this. So, you know, for people listening to this, check in on my Instagram during the week, and you'll be able to enter to win a giveaway on a podcast jumper.
Mate, they're nice jumpers.
They're good, aren't they? Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Can I enter for another one?
I get them from my father-in-law, who runs a safety hub in Adelaide, which is a safety business. So these are actually like qualified safety jumpers that they give out to people.
Oh, really?
In Adelaide winters, and they're very, very warm.
Yeah, mate.
Very, very warm. They're gone. Just make sure that you cold wash it only.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Otherwise, it just might shrink a bit.
I actually don't know how to do that with my washing machine. Seriously, I don't.
I'm not surprised one little bit.
I've tried. I've been trying for years. I can't get it to go just all cold.
You know what? I must confess, I only actually found this out when I got this jumper, and I had to ask my wife, how do you do cold washes only? So here I am ragging you for it, and
Steph.
it was only like a month ago she taught me how to do it. All right, so we just recently talking about the brotherhood you get from the military and stuff like that, and great conversation on that sort of stuff. It makes me reflect as well as to how lucky I am to have some of the friendships I have, and especially me joining the military when I was 18. Right, I had my 18th birthday, and then a month or two later I was away joining the military. And I remember meeting people like yourself, and I'm not going to say any of their names, but other people, and we sort of forged a close friendship very, very early, and those were my formative years in the military. And people like yourself took me under their wing, and I'm forever thankful for that. So look, I'm going to move on to some of your other questions, and this is post-military now. And back to the starting point of how you sort of came through, and you've always had to have something in your life where you've done adventure stuff or extreme stuff or really tested yourself. That's probably what I'm trying to get to more. Really testing yourself with fighting, even going to uni and doing quite subjective stuff that was quite hard to learn. Engineering, computer science, like. Your average person just doesn't go to uni and do that, right? There's only a small percentage of people. So you've even tested yourself intellectually continuously, right? And then going into the military, massive test. Now, coming out of the military, you sort of got into ultra marathons, running long distance races. I've really fallen in love with them as well. Really fallen in love with them, and we can have a really good back and forth conversation on this. But what was your motivation, driving point to get there? Tell me about it.
Oh, it was actually kind of by mistake.
Don't tell me that. Tell me something motivational.
Well, I was when I left the military, I went into that general thing that can sometimes happen, and you party a lot, you kind of get into that vibe. And then I was living with a very good friend of mine at the time, and for some reason I'd heard about 100-kilometre ultra marathon through the Blue Mountains. It was called the North Face 100. And I mentioned it to him when we were sitting on the couch, and it was like 2 weeks out from the race. And he goes to me, I bet you can't do it. And I was like, how hard can it be?
Challenge accepted.
Yes. So I was like, I bet I can. So we had like $300 or so on it. Even though the race cost me $700 to enter, and I had to buy all this equipment.
Maybe you're not so smart.
Mate, I wasn't very smart because let me tell you, I was going pretty well. Like the furthest I'd run up until that point, like, you know, in the military, you don't really run long distances. It's more about pack, you know, heavy
walking with 30 kilos on you, you know.
So the first I'd run, I think, was 21. So I got to about the 40K mark, and I remember just feeling my legs starting to. I was up until that point. I was like, "This is going to be easy."
It hits you quick, doesn't it?
It hits you quick,
hits you quick. And all of a sudden, you just go from feeling great to like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah. It was pretty horrible actually. Those final 60 kilometers of like your legs are just in deep cramps and pain. But I did it and I kind of loved it.
That struggle that you have to go through to finish it, and then after finishing it, it's a massive sense of achievement. But you know, I don't look back on any of my ultra marathons I've done. I've done a couple 50s and a 100, but I don't look at any of them and look at the time in the finish line. Right? I don't think to myself, oh, the best part of that race was when I finished it. No, the best part of it was when I was 70. I've done back-to-back marathons, and I was at K84, and I had 16K to go, and I couldn't move. Well, that's the best part of the race to me. It's not the best. It wasn't, you know, finishing. The best part was the struggle, the 50K in. You go, fuck, I've got another 50K. You get 60K in. Fuck, I've got to run a marathon. You get 84K in. I've done back-to-back marathons. And you telling me I've got another 14 fucking K or 16K? You know, to me, that's 100%. The best parts of the race.
100%. And I think what I find really interesting too is that whatever the distance the race is, you kind of calibrate your mind to go that distance. So whether it's been a 50K, 100K or 140, like at that point, once I get to the end, I'm like, oh, you know, I don't think I could have gone any further. But you always can.
Yeah.
You always can go further. And I think that's quite a cool thing about the human mind.
Yeah.
Is it literally the human mind limits your physical capability. And if you can realize that, then, you know, essentially you can do whatever you want.
100%. You know what's a great test for that? Them park runs where on the hour, every hour, you just run like 7Ks and you just...
Sounds horrible.
It is. They did one in Adelaide recently, and a guy clocked up like 300 St. Ks and ran for a couple of days.
Is that called the backyard ultra thing?
Yeah, like a last man standing.
Yeah,
so,
I've heard about
there's
that.
like a few hundred people that line up and you run a 7K track and then every hour you have to run that 7K. And if you do it in 30 minutes, you've got 30 minutes to rest. And you just go until there's the last man standing, literally. A guy broke a world record last year over in a race in America, and he ran for 5.5 days. Every hour on the hour, just did that 7K loop.
Yeah, wow.
Record-breaking run.
Wow, that's impressive.
You know, but like but that sort of counteracts what you're saying with the mind will go as far as it, you know, you tell it to go. But with that, it's like, hey, I'm just going to go until I'm the last man standing. Like that's a different sort of aspect. That's a different beast.
Yeah.
I definitely want to run one of those races just to test me mentally with it. But I've got a couple other things on the horizon that I'm doing. But
what's on the horizon?
I'm going to run a 115K race in October.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's in South Australia. It's called the Heisman. So it's called the Heisman 105 or something. The Heisman Trail itself starts from bottom of South Australia, goes all the way up to the Flinders Ranges. It's 1,200 kilometre track. But we're only running a little small part of it, which is 115. My first ultra, ironically, was I ran the 50K race on that. And I sort of, similar to you, I just went, I want to get into this. No one really, I didn't have a bet on it, but I went, I want to get into this and just never ran above 20K before. And I ran 50 and I thought, when I cross the line, I can run 100. So I booked myself into the Adelaide Ultra, ran a 100K race. When I crossed the line on that and I went, I reckon I could go further. So I'm just in this, sort of phase at the moment to, I'll do a 115K race and then after that I want to target a 100-miler race.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. Which 100 miler are you thinking of?
So the first 100K race I did, they've just announced that they're going to do a 100 miler on it. It's called the Adelaide 100.
Okay.
So you start off in the Adelaide Hills. There's about 3.5, 4K worth of elevation in it.
Nice.
It was that at that point, which I was talking about before, I got to K70 and I'd, because I live quite close to the area where that
you thought about going
60K, yeah, literally, we're 2.5 Ks from my house when you get to a point, and I got to K60 and I looked up at the hill because we live right in the foothills in Adelaide, and there's just this big fucking like elevation that I have to go off, and I just went, it's, like home is 1K away or it's 60K, another 40K to the finish line. But obviously I kept going. But that'll be a great race. I think they push further out into the Adelaide Hills, into the Winery region through McLaren Vale. So you get some really nice running through there.
Stop and have a red.
Yeah. Well, maybe a few to take the pain away from the legs. But I've said this on my first podcast. The biggest mistake I made with that is I stopped at K85 and had a rest.
No, never stop.
And because at that time as well, it was in the middle of winter in Adelaide and it was about 7 or 8 degrees at night. It'd been raining all day and my body seized up.
Yeah.
And that last 15K, I just couldn't get moving, which was brutal physically and mentally. But, but that's the thing though we talked about before. I enjoyed that. I look back on that now and I go, that's my favourite part of the race.
Yeah. No, I completely understand it. It's like that. Have you heard of like type 1, type 2, type 3 fun?
Nah, explain it to me.
Okay, so type 1 is like whilst you're doing something, you're really enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Type 2 is whilst you're doing it, you fucking hate it. But then afterwards you look back on it, like an ultra marathon, you're like, that was amazing. And then type 3 is you're doing it and you really hate it. And then afterwards you look back and you still really hated it.
Yeah. I think I'm between type 1 and 2 maybe.
Okay.
Because, whenever I finish ultra marathon, I just want to Google the next one and be like, okay, when is that? When can I run it now? And I'm assuming I'll eventually get over this stage, right? And I'll start to maybe do other stuff that isn't so brutal on the body, and maybe I'll take up fucking cycling or something like that and, ride long distances.
You're a long way away from that, mate.
Yeah, I am. Now, you haven't only just done ultra marathons, you've also done adventure races. I'm really, really keen to jump into this sort of stuff because, I don't really know much about it. So do you want to explain to me some of the races you've done over in New Zealand?
Yeah, sure. So I've done the longest day, which is the coast to coast race, which is kind of New Zealand's like inaugural epic kind of adventure race.
So what's the details behind that? You got to run a certain amount, bike and kayak?
Yeah, so you start on one side of New Zealand on the east coast, and you run ride and kayak, whitewater kayak over the country, and you finish in Christchurch. So on the other side of the
Southern Island.
Yeah, Southern Island. Yeah. And you go up through like this pass, which is like in the Alps.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, it's epic.
High altitude.
Yeah, it's epic.
It is great scenery.
It is like the best race I think I've ever done.
And what's the kilometres behind the legs?
So it's like it's a short run off the beach, like maybe like 3Ks or something like that. Then it's it's like a 50K mountain ride or 55K mountain road bike, and then it's like this mountain run through the pass.
And that's the tester?
The testers. I think the whole race is a tester, to be honest, because that mountain run's probably I think it's about 35Ks, but it's technical. So you've got to run through these rivers or this river, and you have to keep crossing it. And there's no real there's no real path. You've just got to kind of follow along this river, and you just got to keep running through like the river up to your sort of waist, and then climbing up over boulders and then you get to the top, and then you've just got to absolutely belt it the other way down, and then you run through another river. And
sometimes, or most of the time, that can be a lot more harder than going up because your body's so fatigued and you don't want to fall, right? Because if you fall, it's potentially be lethal.
But that's always been, I think for me, I've always been good at downhill because I don't worry about that. I just run as fast as I can. Yeah. And hope my legs catch me. So I'm pretty much falling all the time.
I tried to, when I was talking about you going to uni and that, I tried to, make you come across as quite a smart guy. But I think you've proven me wrong here, mate.
Don't do that, mate. And then after that, another ride. And then you do a 70-kilometre whitewater kayak, which is like
Tough.
down this Waimak River, which is epic.
Yeah.
And it's technical. It's a technical whitewater kayak.
Yeah.
And
you
then
need,
after
you need
that,
to stay switched on for it.
you got to stay switch on.
Yeah.
And then after that, you do another 75K ride into Christchurch into this massive headwind.
Yeah.
Which is there every evening. It just smashes straight into your face. And then you finish on the beach in Christchurch.
How long did that race take you?
Ooh, the first time I think it was like 13 and a half hours. And then the second time I think I did it in 12.
What was your where did you come on the field placing?
I came fourth in
Wow.
the first one. Fourth in the open, men's open. And then the second one, I was actually in front, and then I got a hole in my boat on the kayak down the Waimak. So I had to get out and bloody empty my boat, I think about 10 times. So I ended up coming fourth as well. And actually, I was in third position, and this guy passed me in the last like 2Ks. I will never forget that. Hated that.
Oof.
Hated that. He was a better cyclist than I was. Cycling's never been my strong point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, great experience.
I know how you feel with and for me it was my body breaking down on the 100K race, but I was coming like 5th or something in the 60K point, ended up coming 19th.
Yeah.
Just because my body broke. Like, just trying to that making that mistake of stopping and not getting moving again. Like, people were just running past me in the last 10K, and I'm like, fuck. Yeah, it just kills you.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts, but it does make you want to come back and do it again, So
Definitely.
yeah, I need to do that race again. It's just an absolute logistics nightmare. You've got to get your boat over there,
Yeah.
a bike, and it's tough.
And it's not like you're doing it professionally, right? Where you get sponsors and stuff like that. It's all out of your own pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, sort of moving on from that ultra marathon field and that adventure stuff, and that sort of got you into climbing some really, really tough high mountains. Mount Cook in the highest point in New Zealand, and you've been to Everest Base Camp, and you've climbed some mountains around there. And I want to dive into this and maybe take me through the Mount Cook experience first, because we were talking about this before, and it was actually a little bit dangerous what you did. And then I want to dive into some of the Himalayas stuff you've done. But let's go on the Mount Cook stuff and tell me your experience going up that mountain.
Mount Cook is a scary, scary mountain if the conditions aren't right. And I think when we were climbing it, the conditions weren't perfect. And also it's actually a really technical climb. Far more technical actually than a lot of the climbing in the Himalayas. So yeah, that was my first real technical mountaineering climb. And often a lot of people do maybe a fair bit of training to climb that mountain.
But what did someone make a bet with you with $300 or something?
Well, actually, what happened was I actually went. A good mate of mine's been a mountaineer for quite a long time, and I went with him. And the intent was I was going to climb a mountain next to Mount Cook because of my level, and he was an experienced climber, so he was going for Mount Cook. And I realised when we were, because you do like a lead up thing where you kind of just do skills and technique and so forth and kind of acclimatisation for the first 2 or 3 days. I realised that the guy I was climbing with, after like 2 or 3 days, didn't realise that I was meant to be climbing this smaller, quite easy mountain.
So you just took the opportunity.
I went for it. God, I shit myself too. Yeah. Let me tell you, it was pretty scary at some points there.
Yeah.
But the best experience.
Because people don't realise as well, that's a very dangerous mountain. I've done some research into this and lead up in this conversation. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's actually quite famous for walking past green boots on Mount Everest and not helping him out. And he actually has no legs. Right, and the story from him was losing his legs was he went up to the Mount Cook on a bad day, got caught in a cave, spent 2 weeks in the cave because the weather was so bad no one could get to him. They got him out and had to amputate both his legs.
Wow.
And then he was one of the first people to summit Everest with a W amputee.
Oh, is that right?
But he come under a lot of slack from a lot of media around the world because there was a guy called Green Boots up on Everest. It's one of the points now that everyone sort of knows because he has green boots and it's the body left there that they just can't get down. And it's preserved so well because it's so cold. They walked past him when he was sort of still, could talk and that. And they were like, we're going up, guys, and you can just stay here. And, there's a whole bunch of, should he done this or should he done that? And, a lot of people commenting weren't there. So
that's right.
Also at the same time.
It's often the case.
Yeah.
Most people commenting weren't there.
Yeah. Also at the same time, it's shut the fuck up sort of thing.
Yeah.
And what would you do? I'm a double amputee going for the
What am I going to do?
Yeah. But, going back to that story that he lost his legs on Mount Cook. Did anything ever sort of cross your mind when you were a bit unexperienced going up there?
Oh, mate, 100%. Like there were points where I'm running and sort of in my crampons trying to dive across crevasses and slamming my ice axes on the other side. It was scary. But like I loved it.
Yeah.
I just love like, and you know this, like being out in nature and being up tall mountains, you get to be kind of by yourself.
It's a drug. It's the drug of nature. I get it. Like when I run up through Moriata, a conservation park in my area, you get great views of the city, and it's a 500 meter, 600 meter run up, and the air gets a little bit colder, and it's just something about it.
Yeah,
and it's like the drug of nature, and it's just it's amazing. I've heard people talk about it on podcasts all the time, and. A lot of people just sit around in their homes and stuff like that. Just get out with nature and start walking again.
Just get out there, guys.
Fucking feel a bit better.
Yeah, just get out there.
All right, let's move on to some of your experiences in the Himalayas. I know that you've summited quite some of the mountains around there. Do you want to tell me?
Yeah, I've only been to the Himalayas once, but I actually went there to summit a mountain which is next to Mount Everest called Mount Pumari, and quite a technical climb. I was there for 4 weeks trying to get up the mountain.
But the weather conditions?
No, it was avalanche risk.
Okay.
So the snow was, up to chest.
And is there a certain time of the year that you can only climb in the Himalayas?
Yeah, well, there's 2 times. So it's generally like around May is the main time, but then you can also go in October.
Okay.
So I had some opportunity to get some time off work. So I went in October.
Yeah.
Which turned out, because that's after their winter, there was too much snow.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, I couldn't get up that mountain.
Yeah.
Which was pretty disappointing. But then I said, well, I'm here in the Himalayas. I need to climb a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So me and actually, it's the same guy I climbed Mount Cook with.
Yeah.
We kind of jogged over because I only had 2 days left or 3 days left of my trip. So we kind of jogged about 15 Ks to the base camp of this other mountain in the Himalayas called Loboshe.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people climb before they climb Mount Everest as like a acclimatization mountain.
And how high is that?
That's like 6,000 something.
Yep.
So not super high and not super challenging. But him and I just kind of got to the high camp and set off at didn't sleep, just kind of set off at 1 a.m. or whatever with our torchlights and
by yourself,
headlamps. Yeah, him and I. Yeah.
That's
and up we went, but we didn't even it is fixed lined, but we just kind of just beeline straight up it. It was awesome.
It sounds like one of those stories of like, oh yeah, those 2 guys died on that mountain. They didn't tell anyone they were going. They didn't hook into lines. They just went.
No. Like, hey mate, he is like an incredible climber. So he's got the record for the fastest climb up K2.
Yeah, K2 is the most dangerous
mountain in the world.
Yeah.
So he is like, this guy's
legit.
He's another level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you were with someone that was extremely experienced.
Extremely experienced. Okay. Yeah. And that's he's also so him and I climbed Mount Cook together for the first time.
Has he summited Everest?
Yeah. So he is Nepalese.
Really?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah, no, he is. And
wow.
he's summited Everest, I think 7 times.
Yeah.
He actually went for the speed record up Everest last year.
He holds a record for doing the like the 8 highest peaks in the world in the shortest amount of time, right? Is that him?
Nah, not him. That's what's his name? He did a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, okay. Not the same guy I'm thinking.
Not the same guy, but they do know each other.
Yeah. How did you become friends with this guy?
I actually met him at the mountaineering school in New Zealand, in Wanaka.
Wow. Okay.
And we kind of sort of
clicked, and
I was like, hey,
I want to climb this.
Let's go do this together. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, he's a really cool guy.
Look, mate, I'm going to start, wrapping this thing up. We're about an hour into it, and I feel like you need another episode for your life. But I'm not going to,
so, mate.
I'm not going to rule out having you on again, because I'd love to have you back in a year or two's time, maybe when my podcast has gone a bit more viral then. But
sure it will.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Look, you need to. Actually, no, I'm going to another point. I ask this question to all my podcast guests. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love it. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the podcast. And you're a guy that's done a lot of stuff in your life. So what's one bit of advice you would give to 18-year-old Warren Proctor about life?
Ooh. I think I would tell 18-year-old me to not sweat the small stuff. Don't worry too much about the decisions, right? Because whatever decision you make will turn out pretty well. Mm. And I think back then, when you're young, you're kind of like, oh, should I do this? Should I go and do this? Should I do this? But ultimately, I think, as long as whatever you do it as best as you possibly can and you give it your all, life's going to go all right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good bit of advice. I like it. Yeah, and a lot of people do have that mentality as well. Just don't sweat it. Enjoy it, but you're actually the first person to say, whatever you do, just be good at it. Which I think there's a massive bit of learning in there. Like, it doesn't matter if you're like a plumber. Like, just be good at it. So you're not causing issues for everyone else. Like, what do you hate about life, right? Fucking getting in someone that doesn't do their job correctly, and then it makes your life a bit harder. It's like, why should I have to fix a plumber's issue if they can't fix it? So that's that thing. Like, if you're going to do something, just be good at it.
Yeah, do your best. Yeah. Do your best. If you're going to be in the Secret Service, protect the president.
Yeah. Oh wow, that is a rabbit hole we could go down for hours. But we don't have that long, unfortunately. Now you have to have a question for the next podcast guest, and he's coming in tomorrow morning, but I will be releasing it, obviously a few days later after yours. So you do know him quite on a personal level. Just a quick little background on him without giving him away. He was a professional rugby player for 8 or so years, and then sort of went into the fitness industry and has sort of got into that ultramarathon running world and that fitness world. So, mate, what would be your question for him?
So knowing him quite well, I think I know more recently, say over the last 4 years, he dealt with a pretty severe back injury that had him bedbound for quite a while. And, I think the doctors told him he wasn't going to be able to walk, or not going to be able to, not so much walk, but maybe not be able to train and do the things he's always done. So I'd like to know how he coped with that and how he has managed to recover to the point where he's now about to go and run UTMB in Mont Blanc.
Pretty much the hardest ultramarathon race in the world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So
it's going to be annoying because then he's going to run further than me. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah. I could just see your brain ticket over now.
Not enjoying that.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, mate, that's a great question. I didn't have that on my questions to ask him. So, you're going to have to tune into the next episode to find out.
For sure.
And, mate, Warren Proctor, it's like we were saying before, we have a very close bond, and it's a privilege that I get to call you a friend, mate. And thank you very much for coming on my podcast. And, let's go have a nice steak and some wines.
Yeah, let's do it, mate. Thanks, mate, and likewise.
Good on you.
Cheers, bud.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for more information, head over to our Instagram at Two Worlds Collide Podcast. Take care.